Welcome back to Fintech Insider Focus in association with Visa. In this show, we take a burning question from financial services across the globe and really put it under the microscope with explainers, expert panels, and in-depth interviews, all to bring the global community into focus. Today, I am joined again by my Fintech Insider Focus co-host, Miranda Perumal, who is the head of digital partnerships, fintech, and ventures at Visa. How are you doing, Miranda?
Very well, thank you. Proudly South African today with a very dark background because it's load shedding.
It's all part of the cause in that sense, isn't it? But this is the second part of our focus on the question: what problems is mobile money solving in sub-Saharan Africa? I mean, if you haven't heard part one of that conversation, go and find it wherever you found this podcast and listen to our panel discussion with amazing guests from Chipper Cash and Jamo. We spoke about how mobile money flourished in sub-Saharan Africa, the roles of telcos within the region, and the real power of financial inclusion the services can really offer. So, Miranda, to recap for anybody who didn't listen to that first episode, where does Visa fit into the picture of mobile money?
Yeah, thanks, David. So our role within mobile money across this continent is really to create a layer of value on top of, mobile money players across the region. And those comes in many different shapes and sizes. And as you would know, sub-Saharan Africa as a whole is extremely nuanced when you look at a per market sort of landscape. Visa steps in with, our global network and access to sort of global commerce. And we provide the ability for an MNO or a fintech or another type tech that has a mobile money solution to provide their customer or merchant with global commerce access. And that could come in ATM transactions on an open loop card in another market, e-commerce, cross-border transactions on virtual cards or digital cards. But it essentially opens up the closed loop environments that mobile money operates in today into more of a global, interoperable, and limitless customer transaction experience.
That's fantastic. I mean, as you say, it's not just having access; it's having impact, isn't it? And those services that can be built on top of those foundations of the industry. I mean, as the conversation went, is very varied in terms of what can be there.
Absolutely, and I think it's that's one part, right? To give access, create the ability for a customer to access something as easy as a card or a credential in its different forms. But there's a whole different layer in terms of creating an environment for that customer to be financially satisfied. Can they save in it? Can they get rewarded in it? Can they get credit in it? Are they educated in it? And that's a big part of our role within this ecosystem. And not only focused on, these MNOs or fintechs or mobile money players, it's really across that ecosystem. So we work with the banks, we work with the regulators, our enabling partners like processors, PayFacs, digital onboarding, etc. But it's really at an ecosystem level, across the various different parties that touch these customers and merchants' experiences, to say, let's educate on how we grow as a region and a continent within financial services. And let's start to better educate consumers and merchants around the capabilities that are available to them, with an ultimate objective of displacing cash, but enhancing the lives of, customers and small business owners, through financial services, innovative digital payment solutions.
Very, very cool. I mean, it was a fantastic conversation. If you are listening to this and you haven't heard that conversation with myself, Miranda, Ham, and Hassan, go check that out. In this second episode, we're sitting down with a big name guest from a mobile money space to take some of that panel discussion even further. You'll hear that after a quick short message from Visa. Don't go anywhere. Visa's FinTech Fast Track program is streamlining the onboarding process for fintechs, enabling them to gain access to Visa's powerful capabilities and network. Visa and their enablement partners help fintechs launch and scale cards, virtual credentials, and disbursement programs. To learn more, visit partner.visa.com.
I'm David Barton-Grimley, Director of Fintech Strategy at 11FS, and it's great to be joined by an amazing guest to dive further into the question, what problem is mobile money solving in sub-Saharan Africa? I'm delighted to be joined by Cedric Atangana, CEO and co-founder of WeCashUp. How are you doing, Cedric?
I'm very good, and you?
Yes, very good, thank you. Very excited for this discussion. Can you start by giving the listeners the elevator pitch on what WeCashUp is and what it does?
Yeah, WeCashUp is a virtual supermarket for digital financial services in Africa. We help informal small mobile money agents to digitalize their business. They are like living ATMs. In Europe, we have cards and we withdraw cash from ATMs. In Africa, we use mobile money and we withdraw cash from these mobile money agents who are like small like entrepreneurs who are selling goods across the street. And we built a solution that helps them process their transactions.
Amazing. Right, let's jump right in. We've got lots to unpack. Let's start with talking a little bit about you and the journey that you took to becoming a fintech founder. How did you start? What was your journey? And also, what problem did you see that you wanted to solve?
Yeah, when I was 16, today I'm 32. I'm a computer engineer. I was graduated from Polytechnique Marseille in the south of France. Born and raised in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And in 2008, I was 16 and my dad had a stroke. And we took him to the hospital. And, in Africa, you have to pay everything in cash before you are taken in charge at the hospital. And unfortunately for us, we didn't have enough money. And then we had to call our brothers and sisters, family members, friends and all to come to the hospital in cash. And at that time, we had no way to send money fast to the hospital. So people had to walk, like take taxis, bikes, and whatever they can to come to the hospital with cash. And I was carrying my dad in my arms in the waiting room, and unfortunately he passed away. And when people arrived, it was too late. So I won't say that it's at that moment that the idea of WeCashUp came, but that's the moment I started getting interested in payments. Like, how can somebody die for less than $100? That today we move like flash, instantly. But at that time, we had no solution to move money fast. So that's how I got interested in payments. And then I moved to France for my studies. And then I started working with Google. And Google organized an event in Nairobi, Kenya. And then I moved, I attended that event. And at the end of the event, I went to the Maasai market, which is a very popular market in Nairobi. And I wanted to buy like souvenirs for my friends, and I wanted to pay in cash. And then the woman was selling the like small goods, and she said, "No, I don't take cash." I was like, "How? How do you want me to pay?" And then she said, "With M-Pesa." They said, "Well, what is M-Pesa?" And then she explained to me that M-Pesa, it's a mobile money solution that like practically all the Kenyans use. It's phones, and then wow. And then my mind just exploded. It was so simple to use. And I bought a local SIM card. I loaded my M-Pesa account at an agent point of sale. And then I went back to Marseille. I said, wow, I saw something in Marseille. And I discussed with my co-founder and said, I saw something in Marseille, M-Pesa, please help me. I'm a computer engineer. So you have the background in like finance and all like market research and all. Please, can you help me check on these things? And then that's how we started checking M-Pesa. We realized that it works well in Kenya, but you cannot move money from one mobile operator to another mobile operator at that time. So no local interoperability, no way to make like cross-border transaction, like one from Kenya to Cameroon, for example, and no way to make online payments. At that time, I was shocked. And then I realized that mobile money agents is built on its distribution network. Like the agents, all these agents, like they're like small entrepreneurs who have there are small shops everywhere. And that's where you buy your SIM card, where you open your account, where you load your account with cash, and where you withdraw cash from the account. Then we say, okay, there's something to be done here. And that's how the idea of WeCashUp came. Say, okay, in sub-Saharan Africa, we have more than 6 million agents on the continent. And they work every day. They process the last year, they processed more than $1 trillion US, which is completely crazy. and it's all manual. And then they say, oh, we have to build something to help them in the process. So that's how the idea of WeCashUp came to my mind, and that's where we are today.
Wow, Cedric, what an amazing founding story and journey that you've been through. And just to reflect a little bit on your comments about M-Pesa, it's amazing how fast Sub-Saharan Africa has moved in some ways. Well, I suppose we should say some parts of Sub-Saharan Africa have moved from a cash economy to M-Pesa. But I'd love to dive deeper a little bit into the agent model that you were talking about and the huge volumes of transactions that go through. I mean, how critical is mobile money now to the economies of Sub-Saharan Africa? And do you still see the agent model, or the way that people top up and use money, still staying the same or changing over time?
Things are evolving. I would say things are evolving a lot, really fast. But today, I think mobile money still rely a lot on its distribution network, like on the agents, because I would say all the African economy today, as we're speaking, rely on mobile money agents. They are small, they are everywhere, and you cannot just jump into Kenya and if you want to interact with M-Pesa, you cannot do it without going through an agent. That is not possible as we're speaking now. So I strongly believe that agents are still there, and they are still they will stay in the market for a while. And that's also why we decided to help them. We know that at a certain point of time, they might, I won't say disappear, but the need for agents might reduce over time. And these people, as I told you, 6 million people, if they lose their job because of the technology, these are a lot of families that will be affected. So the idea is to anticipate and say, okay, these people are like the backbone of the African economy today. But tomorrow, if things shift, we need to find a way to transform them into something else, into something better, I don't know. That's the challenge that we are trying to address.
And it's the backbone of the economy moving forward, as you say. I'd like to talk a little bit about Francophone markets in Africa. I think it's fascinating. If we look at the French language in Africa, it's spoken by an estimated 167 million people in 2023, spread across 34 countries and territories. How different would you say are Francophone markets in Sub-Saharan Africa as compared to others?
That's a very good question. It's a good debate, because a lot of people have been comparing Francophone Africa with all the English-speaking countries and all. I think that is a debate that is generally, I would say, that people have outside of Africa. But when you are in Africa, there's no Francophone, Anglophone, and the others. They're like ethnics. In Cameroon, for example, if you jump into Cameroon, is Francophone and Anglophone both. But in Cameroon, we have more than 250 ethnic groups. And you don't sell in the north the same way you sell in the south, and in the east the same way you sell in the west. So the idea is when people like myself, today I went back from Marseille, from France to Cameroon. I decided to settle here because I understood it. Say, okay, it is difficult to address the market from sitting from Paris or San Francisco or I don't know which London. Because when you're trying to address it from very far, you will only see Francophone, Anglophone. And to me, that's not where, if you want to be efficient in providing solutions to these people, you have to come close to them. And when you come closer, you will realize that it's not about French or English. It is more about the culture, the local culture. You have to meet people physically and try to understand their needs, and then try to shape your value proposition to make sure that it fits the local realities of the ground. And you have the religions. You don't sell to a Muslim person the same way you sell to a Christian person. These are some of the small elements that might be completely that you cannot see easily looking from the Anglophone, Francophone perspective. So that's why I advise all the people who are interested in doing business in Africa to come talk to the people, to understand that Africa is not a monolithic block. It's like a lot of small block, and there are a lot of different marketing strategies to put in place to make sure that we address every single I would say every single group of people. So that's how I see things, and I'll say I'll just stop there and then let you continue.
Yeah, you're touching on one of the bigger challenges, I think, with scaling throughout various different countries, and I think you're right when we think, for example, in the UK where I'm sitting, when you launch a banking app, you launch it in English, and you're not too concerned about cultural variances. Although there is actually a gap in the UK at the moment with underserved populations that is a big thing now to start solving. But in Africa, with all of the different cultures and ethnicities and languages, that creates actually quite a lot of challenge for trying to figure out as you say, you need to develop an app or a solution that accounts for that. Aside from language, I mean, what would you say are the other big challenges that that's causing you headaches as a company as you scale through sub-Saharan Africa? What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a good question because it's really I'll say the intersection of where the challenge that we face in Africa and the challenge that we face outside of Africa, because when we started the company, the company was incorporated in France at first. So at the beginning, we are a French company. So I was, I studied in France, and when I came back to Africa with a new solution, people said, no, this, it's a French solution, or a European solution. Then it was difficult for us to raise money from African investors, because they say, okay, no, we want to invest in Africa, in African companies and all. Me being a Cameroonian, so an African, now I came back with a solution, and people say, no, your solution is not African. I was like, oh. Then when I go back to Europe, I meet investors and I say, guys, we build a solution, Africa, payments, etc. I say, no, we don't invest in Africa. It's a lot of the risk, etc. So we end up like between two parents. You have your parent, the one in Africa who is rejecting you, and the one in Europe who is rejecting you. So that was one of the biggest challenges that we had, and then we still have today. And we are looking for the smart investors who understood. Finally, I hope, because we started 8 years ago, and I hope things have evolved a little bit in the investor industry, to say, guys, we are looking for people who are interested in Africa. I'm very happy to be in this podcast that is really focused on mobile money, talking about Francophone Africa. This is quite the first time I attend such a podcast. So it's a very good thing. And then I think investors need to be educated. And I have a few examples. We have a company like MTN Group, that is a South African company. So I'll say an Anglophone company that is making billions of dollars in Francophone Africa. If they are able to do that, everybody, all of us, can make money in Francophone Africa. It's not like, one investor comes to Africa, they jump to Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, sometimes South Africa, and then sometimes Egypt, and that's all. No, Africa, Francophone Africa, it's a huge market, and then we have success stories already with people like MTN. They are making huge money, and that is because they understood that ethnicity a parameter to say, guys, when you come to countries like in Francophone Africa, and we have a country like Cameroon, it's a proxy country. It's both Francophone and Anglophone. So if you want to get into Francophone Africa, come to Cameroon. Cameroon, it's a pass-through where you will learn the cultures, like both, and then you can move progressively to the 100% Francophone countries. So that's what is keeping me awake at night. How can we leverage that? people are investing a lot in Africa, but very little come to Francophone Africa. And this is like because people don't understand the potential of that part of the market and how to get into that. And this is close to like 10 years we have been working in this market. And I think we already have the expertise to help investors get into this market. So, yeah.
It feels like a lot of the investors around the world see Africa as this great promise for growth. It is the next frontier in investments. As you say, billions of dollars are being invested. But it does sound like maybe, particularly from the American and maybe British investing point of view, that sounds like there's just a fundamental language issue in that a lot of the investments are going to countries that speak English, and they're able to talk to people who can speak English. I mean, do you come up against some of those issues with the French language?
Of course. The idea is to say, guys, just be humble. Investors should also be humble. Be humble to say, guys, it is not because I don't understand a market that is a bad market. Investors have to be humble. Say, guys, we have been investing in Nigeria. Okay, we have been investing in Kenya and Ghana, South Africa, and it works quite well. There are some challenges, but we already have some bridges that helps us go. But why can't we get into this? That's my driver. I love challenges. I love everything that is difficult. And I always try my best to crack solutions for difficult problems. And that is the mindset that our investors today should have to say, guys, why MTN? How did MTN do to get into Francophone Africa? We have companies like, French companies like Orange, they are making billions. And MTN is my best case because it's an Anglophone, it's a company coming from an Anglophone country. If they succeeded, anybody can succeed. They just to maybe go to MTN and try to learn. But I have a few tips to share. But that is to say, if they can do it, anybody can do it. But let's just be humble enough to learn, to talk to people, and then try. Sometimes you can learn and then succeed because you got good lessons from the others. But sometimes you just have to try, fail, learn, and retry all over again until you get to the solution. So, yeah, that's my take about that problem.
It sounds like they just need to learn and invest the time and effort, and rather than depending on the market will just all of a sudden emerge and all of these investment opportunities will emerge for them to get in. No, they have to go and make the market.
Exactly, and the other market are crowded already, and Francophone Africa is it's a virgin market. So just come and try.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit about the relationship between fintech and telco. So, you mentioned M-Pesa a few times, and M-Pesa being a currency effectively that was launched by a telco in East Africa. And you could argue that it was one of the very, very first cases of embedded finance that we've ever seen. One of the very first cases of a non-banking organization going into banking. And so it's really leading the way in that. But how has that evolved over time? I mean, are you still seeing the relationship between telco and fintechs and regulation as being very important? Or are there other players or other industries that are coming up to that will help mobile money scale?
It's a very good question because when we started like 9 years ago, it was very difficult to work with mobile operators. When you're a small startup, a small company, you're 2 or 3 guys trying to do something, and then you go talk to M-Pesa or Orange or MTN. They see you as a tiny little, thing there that is just shaking around. And you are not interesting for them. What they are looking for, it's like immediate like profit and scale, and that was one of the issue that we had with mobile operators. They wanted to do everything, because they have, mobile operators have, access to a very large base of users. And they have a very, I would say, long history of data or transaction data on the users, like voice. So they know where you are, everything. So they thought they can do everything in that I would say, financial service landscape. And they tried a lot of things and they failed sometimes. And I think today they are more open to working with fintech. Today we have better interactions with mobile operators. They understood that they have to focus on their core business and then try to be helped by other fintech that can bring complementary value addition to what they are doing. So I would say it is easier today, but to work with these people, what on the fintech side, we need to understand their challenges. They have a lot of regulatory challenges. The first one being that they are working on the intersection of two regulations: the telecom regulations, because they are a mobile operator. So there are some rules that they have to respect in that area. And then today they are providing financial services. That is the banking regulation. So a good fintech that would like to navigate in that area should understand these two big constraints that the mobile operators have. And once you understand that, you will understand their problems. And generally, their problems is on the compliance side, because when you have 20 million users making transactions every day, there's practically no bank in Africa. Like when you check country per country, there's practically no bank in Africa with that number of users, active users every day. There's practically nobody, like 20 million users, 30 million users, 40 million users, but you have a lot of mobile operators with that level of activity. That means that the level, the risk, the compliance risk on their level is also very high. And as a fintech, when I understand that, I will position myself taking into account these two key elements. And that's how we came up with our solution. Say, guys, you cannot exist without your mobile money agents. That is a fact. There is no mobile money without agents. No matter if you are in Kenya or Cameroon or whatever you are in Africa, there is no mobile money without agents. And then these agents are, I'll say, the foundation on which mobile operators are built. The day you remove it, you just broke the mobile operator. And then you say, guys, we know you have the energy, you have been investing a lot and all, but we want to give you a push there. Let us help you there so you can focus on your core business. So we built WeCashUp's, which is an app that these mobile agents use every day to make their transactions. Just to give you an example, agents today, I flew to Tanzania, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and we had like 12 mobile operators in the country. 12. And then you end up with agents with 12 feature phones. And then when the client comes, say, he dials star 123 star, the beneficiary's phone number, star, the amount, star, the PIN code, hash, to make a deposit or a withdrawal. And it's complete. And they have a small notebook like this one, they write every single transaction, And at the end of the day, they spend like 1 hour to calculate how much commission they make from each operator, like 12 mobile operators. And this is just crazy. So we built an app that aggregates all these mobile operators in one single place, and then we automated the accounting to make it easy for them. So all of our agents know precisely how much money they make with each mobile operator. And now the accounting is automated. They no longer dial USSD code star 123 blah blah blah. It takes before it was taking 5 minutes per transaction. Now it takes less than 30 seconds. It goes faster. So these are some of the things that we brought to the market to optimize, to accelerate, and support mobile operators in that mobile money journey. So these are some of the examples. And I know a lot of other fintechs are bringing such solutions to make mobile operators more efficient. So they should pay more attention to what fintechs are doing. And I strongly believe in a vision where we have mobile operators supported by fintech to support the regulators. Because if mobile operators fail, we all fail, and regulators, all of us fail. So the idea is to support them and maximize our impact in the market. Yeah.
It is such a fascinating insight that the scale that the telcos have is something that no bank pretty much has the scale to be able to deal with. And this is where providers like you actually come in. And I think the second interesting thing you said there was how technology in some senses is creating more complexity. So as amazing as it is to have mobile money, all of a sudden you have all of these different accounts that you need to work with. And then it's the next wave of startups that come in to start to say, how might we aggregate this? How might we take friction out of all of these experiences and bring it together? I'd love to talk a little bit more about the agents, right? And how if you look at financial inclusion, for example, so according to the World Bank, 45% of sub-Saharan Africans aged 15 and above were unbanked in 2021. And I'd love to talk a little bit about how mobile money through the agents might facilitate that. And what are some of the things you're thinking about to help boost the well-being and the businesses that the agents have, so that you can lift more people out of poverty?
Yeah. That is a good point. I love that part because the data that we see with the agents that are using our platform show us that an agent meets 100 people every single day on average, like 100 people. And these people, some of them have mobile money accounts, others don't, etc., etc. This means that out of these 100 people, the agent becomes a kind of an enrollment point of sale where the agent can convert and enroll progressively. Like, we have one target that we give to our agent, like enroll one user per day. So one additional user per day. And I strongly believe that this is that will be an acceleration point to a 100% financial inclusion. Because imagine you received money from your mom or your brother and you don't have a mobile money account. The agent, when you withdraw cash from the agent, it costs you a small fee. But if you have your own account, it is free. This means that the agent can tell you, you're withdrawing and you see there's a fee, but you can just download the app or open your account and then you receive that money for free. And then you can send that money again if you make payments. It is completely free. So I strongly believe that agents can help in banking the African population in the sense of mobile money, or one say like having traditional bank account. But I would say people will stay unbanked. Say on the banking perspective, people will stay unbanked in Africa, but they will be banked in the sense of mobile money. Because today what I see here in Cameroon, you have people like with 2, 3, 4, 5 mobile money accounts, which is absolutely crazy. And I think that trends will just keep evolving and moving forward. But if you keep looking the numbers from banks, you will think that Africa is unbanked. Africa is no longer that unbanked. Africa is moving banked, but on the mobile money way. So I think the good thing would be to to merge data from the mobile money industry with the banking industry to say this is the banked population in Africa from both telcos and banks. Plus the microfinance, because these are also some of the actors who are there in the market. They are not visible enough, but they are there. So yeah, that's my view on that.
You're right. What constitutes a banked person in a lot of these countries is not the same as the way we might constitute a banked person in Europe. It's so interesting. A quick fire question from you. We've been talking a lot about financial inclusion and unbanked, but let's bring it back to the central question, connecting these shows that we're doing, considering everything we've discussed. So what would you say is that one main problem mobile money is solving in sub-Saharan Africa? Is it the unbanked, or is it about something else?
To me, people being banked or unbanked, it doesn't really matter. People just want to move money, and that's all. if you are not able to move money fast at the lowest cost possible, people don't care. No matter if you're a bank or mobile operator or whatever you are, fintech or other, people just want like convenience. That's all. If it's through having a phone and making *123, they will go through it. If it's easy to use, if it works fast, that's all. People don't care about being banked or unbanked or whatever it is. In Europe, it matters because when you are banked, you are in a system. I would say a closed loop. Where you are banked, you are connected to the other banks through the central bank. So if you have an issue with one bank in Europe, it will spread throughout the other banks. So you cannot like mess up with one bank and then cross the street and go to the other bank. There is a system in place that prevents that. There's no such thing in most of the African countries. So today, what people want is just like simple things that helps them make transaction, move money fast. You know, that takes me back to my personal story. You know, imagine if we had M-Pesa or such a technology in 2008 when my dad passed away. Maybe we'll still be alive today. So these are some of the basic problems to solve. So yeah.
Comes back to payments, doesn't it? That wraps up this edition of Fintech Insider Focus in association with Visa. Cedric, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find out more about you and WeCashUp?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Cedric Atangana, and on Twitter. So thank you so much, David, for your time. And I hope more investors will pay attention to Francophone Africa. So if you're interested in learning more about WeCashUp, so feel free to ping me on Twitter or X, as we say today. So yeah, thank you so much, David.
Yes, that's right. It's X. Listen up, investors. And you can find me on LinkedIn at DavidBG. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you've liked what you heard, subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. It helps us to make it better and helps others find the show. Be sure to check out the next batch of Fintech Insider Focus episodes in a new geography dropping in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much. Goodbye.